Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening and thanks for joining me to talk about the Family Search Catalog. This is one of my favorite research tools. To be honest, I use it every time I do research for my own ancestors or ancestors for a client. And I'm sure tonight we have a few differing skill levels. Some that maybe use the Family Search Catalog frequently and are just looking for tips on how to navigate it more smoothly. And some of you may have never heard of the Family Search Catalog, and tonight we're going to cater to both of you. First, we're going to do just general housekeeping, talk about what the catalog is, what you can expect to see, and just your first steps, things that you need to know before you dive in. And then we're going to do 3 live examples, focusing in different counties of the United States, and show you how to navigate different organizational methods that these counties used, using the same steps in each county and in each microfilm. And these are steps that you can take with you and carry to any record group that you are going to come across in the catalog. So to start us off, what is the catalog? Well, the catalog describes all the holdings of Family Search, Family History Library, and some of the holdings of other family history centers. So when you go to the catalog, it will tell you what records are available for a given place, what format you can find these records, whether it's in microfilm, microfiche, or book. It'll tell you if it's digitized, if it's indexed, and basically how you're going to find the records. Now, for some, the catalog, and I know for me when I first started researching, the catalog was intimidating. And so the way that I kind of came to terms with it that helped me navigate it more quickly is I thought of it more as just my local library. And when we think of our local library, we're not intimidated by it. We know where the kids section is. We know where nonfiction, fiction, the study rooms. And that's across the board typically what you're going to find in a local library. It's the same with the catalog. It's organized by place. And so when you go into a county, you can expect similar organization, similar record group names across every county, because that's the way that Family Search has organized their catalog. And all you have to be able to do is become familiar with how they have it set up so that you can go into any county, any section of the Family Search catalog or of this library, and then pull books off the shelf that are relating to record groups that you think might answer your questions about your ancestor. So first thing you need to know is where they lived, because that's how the catalog is organized. So if you don't know what county they lived in, it might be difficult to zone in on specific records for your ancestor if all you know is the state. So you really want to try to figure out what counties they lived in or what counties they might have lived in. And if you can, figure out what city or municipality they lived in. And now in the genealogy field, we use the term jurisdiction. And jurisdiction just means essentially what entities would have been creating records for my ancestor. There are a lot of entities at the county level that create records for ancestor for people. So county courts, the county clerk's office, and you'll see some of this also at the city level and then at the federal level. And so you just want to be, excuse me, you just want to be familiar with what records you're looking for and what entities might have created those records. If it's a death certificate, are you looking at the state, depending on the time period, or are you looking at the county clerk's office that would have created those records for you? So once you know the place, you then need to become a little bit familiar with what records will answer your question. So what record do you want to find? Are you in a time period, let's say pre when you would have had civil births, deaths, and marriages recorded, like the 1800s? Early to mid 1800s, are you looking in that area? Then you want to look for probate records, essentially wills or estate records. So you need to be a little bit familiar with record groups and what records will answer your questions. So when you come to the catalog, this is the home page of the catalog. You'll see you have a few different ways right here to filter. And we're going to use the place function today. I find this to be the easiest because I can go directly to the county and see all of the records that the county holds. And this is useful because there are often records, even if it's a county I'm relatively familiar with, there are records that I didn't know existed that might answer questions for me. And so going by the place option and going by the county will help you to get a better sense of what to expect. These are some of the symbols that you should expect to see. So the first one over here on the left, this just means the records are digitized and indexed. This means they are digitized but not indexed, digitized but locked, so you will need to go to a family history center or affiliate center or library. This means they're on microfilm or microfiche, and I'll show you where in the catalog you can see where that microfilm is located, but most of them will be at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. So let's dive into some examples. So we're going to go to 3 different counties today: Covington County's records, Scott County, and Jackson County. And the first one is an interesting case that I worked on, and it's for the Howell family in Covington County, Alabama. And we had their pension record, his pension record from his service in the Mexican War. And we know from the pension that Nancy Howell died in 1906. Now, Covington County had an unfortunate experience, multiple unfortunate experiences, where the county courthouse burned down 3 times between 1840 and 1900, and then also had a flood. And so I wasn't able to find the land records that I wanted that were indicated in the pension file or a will for Nancy Howell's husband. Also did not find a will for Nancy Howell. And so I thought, well, sometimes maybe they never created them. That's a possibility as well. But sometimes later, children maybe had part of the estate, and maybe they had their record, they had the estate probated, or their children's children. And so I'm looking at later dates after 1906 to see if I can find J.E.J. Howell and kind of correlate any land that he might have had with the pension record. I'm also interested in knowing his exact death date, and so I'm going to look to see if the probate records have that information, and then just see what else it tells me, see what else these records tell me. So let's go ahead and dive in and check out what the catalog has for Covington County, Alabama. So I'm starting on that page, but let me just show you how you get to the catalog. So you'll come up here to the search tab, drop down to catalog. Now you'll see again the filtering options, and we're just going to come here. We're going to, now something you should know is the way this search function works is it goes from largest to smallest. You would type in the United States, Alabama, Covington, and it will pull it up for you right here, and you would click on that and search. The other option, and the way that I typically do it, is I'll go Covington, Alabama, without the United States, and it will pull it for you as long as you don't type county. If you type in county, it won't pull up anything, and I've had people that have done this and said, oh, I guess they don't have anything for Covington County, when in fact they do. We just have to make sure that we're typing it the way that the search engine understands. So now that we've got that there, click on it, and then we will click search. Now the first thing that you should know are the notes. And this is great up here because it could tell you if the courthouse was destroyed. It'll also give you information about parent counties. And when I say parent county, all this means is in 1821, part of Henry County was taken and formed Covington County. So if you have an ancestor that lived in Covington County, let's say in 1825, I would recommend that you then search Henry County, because only 4 years earlier was that part of Covington County part of Henry County, if that made sense. And then once you've looked at the notes, you'll come down here, and at first it's like a kind of a jumble of information, but from here over really is just all that you put into the place section right here. So once you come in here more often, I don't even look here anymore. I know after the dash, that's what I'm interested in. Now these are in alphabetical order according to the record group. So you can see censuses, church records, general histories, land, probate records, vital records. Something to note here is this organization was created by Family Search, not by the county. And so these are their chosen names for specific record groups, and they are common in any county. So if you're looking for a will or a state record, you're going to come down to the probate records. If you are looking for a marriage, birth, or death, you're going to click on vital records, and that's for any county. So we are looking for a will or a state record for the Howells, specifically for J.E.J. Howell. After 1906, we know he died in 1920, so it could be as late as that. And you'll come here, and I want you to imagine we've gone into the library, and now we're in the Covington County section of the library, and we're looking at some section headings within Covington County. And you can see here it has the author. So actually think of these as books you're pulling off the shelf. So you have an author, which is Alabama probate judge. Okay, so these are the original records sitting in the courthouse. And this only has 1877, and I'm looking for after 1906, so I'm not going to click on that. But this has the time range that I want, so we're going to click there. And again, go ahead and look at the notes. I would recommend this because this part, Family Search, is not determining the organization of the actual courthouse's records. The courthouse did. Family Search isn't just out to make our time and research difficult, right? It's just, this is just how they went in and microfilmed how the county had everything set up. And we are lucky enough that people have given us notes, Family Search gave us notes about the organization. And so I would recommend that you read these to save yourself a lot of time and frustration. And you can see here that it's indexed in rough alphabetical order, and it gives you some other tips about how the county had these records organized. So then you're going to come down here and you're going to look. You can see these are notes about the microfilm, location of the microfilm, where they're located within that location, the number of the microfilm, the digital number, and what format these records are in. And you'll see here, these records are not indexed. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll come to notes, and I'll see if there is a general index. And these are helpful because a lot of the times each specific volume for a given year of probate records will have an index at the front of it. But the general index will give you kind of a context of, if I'm looking for Howells, it will show me how many Howells in all of the different volumes there were and why they're in the probate court. Was it for an estate? Was it for a guardianship record? So I like to look at the general index so I get an idea of, I only have to go to one place. I don't have to skip around books and their different indexes. I can go to one place and pull all the Howells for the county in a specific time period. So this is located at the Family History Library. It's in the section of the library for the United States and Canada, in the film there. This is the film number. So if you wanted to go to the Family History Library and pull this microfilm for fun, you could. You know the number now. And then this is really important, the item number. I can't tell you how often, and still sometimes I do it. I'll look and say, oh yeah, I want the index. I'm going in without making sure I check to see if there was a section number, because some of these microfilm have a lot of images. So if you don't know what section you're going to, you'll be in for a world of hurt and frustration. And then you'll come back and you'll be like, oh, of course, there was an item number. So make sure that you double check what item number this specific information is on. So let's look inside at the actual microfilm and these images. And when you first come in, you're going to get your bearings. You're going to figure out where the microfilm starts, where it ends, and patterns that you see. So here's where the microfilm starts. You get the microfilm number, some intro pages, and for a little bit of information. Section 1, this means item 1. And then this is the front cover of a book, the actual book that's sitting in the county courthouse. So we have section 1 here, but we need section 3. So here's what I like to do. To make this easier so I'm not scrolling only at, 10 across, I go as small as I can because it'll get me there faster. But you don't really have to be able to read it except for the number. You just need to be able to tell if it's a 1, 2, or 3. It's moving a little bit slower today. So we've got our 2. And we're looking for 3. And there we go. So that is section 3, and that's where we want to start. Now, something to note, well, let's go ahead and look. So it's cool to see these, and this is what you would see in the actual courthouse, or these books. And they're big. They're typically very large, like the size of my torso. And they're fun to handle if you go to a county archive that will let you. But something to know about these books is these counties are purchasing pre-printed books for their indexes. And it depends on who they purchase from that will determine what style of indexing. And so you do want to, before you just start looking, I used to do that when I was a fresh researcher. I would just like, oh, it's an index, so it's alphabetical order. I can do this. But they're not, all indexes are not created equal. They're not created the same. And so the first thing that I recommend you do is you go to the very first page of the index and see if there's an index key, which is what you have right here. So if we zoom in on this, just to give you an idea, you can see here it says the first letter of a surname. So this is not their given name. We're looking at surnames, and we're looking for Howell. I see this going to D. So maybe on the next page we'll get some more information. And it looks like that is not the case. It's just starting with A. So I imagine this whole section will just be the names A through D, surnames. And then we'll see another page that looks like this. That should hopefully have H's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back out. And I will zoom in just a little bit. And to know if you're losing our place, just look for the yellow box. That will show you where you're at. I am looking for an image similar to this. There's blank space here and a column of writing. You'll see that isn't the case with any of these, because I imagine that we're going to get another index key for the next set of surnames. And if you look here, that looks very similar without having to be zoomed in and going page by page. And again, we're looking at Howell. H-O-W. It's on page 67. So here's where a little bit of math comes in. So you right now, looking at this image, we are on image number 642. But we need to go to page 67. So you see those don't correlate. And here's how you get around that. So this is page 1 of this section of the index. We need to go to page 67. So I'm going to add, and to note, there is only 1 page per image. Sometimes, often, you'll get 2 pages per image. But this one's just 1 page per image. So I'm going to add 67 to 643. Put in 700. And that got me very close. It looks like there might be some pages off. There might be something that we're not aware of. And you saw that went from 59 to 61. So there's some funky organization happening, maybe pages missing. So we've got a few 61s, 65. More 65, 67. Okay. So now we're in the right section where we need to be. And I'm looking for, again, J.E.J. Howell. Now I'll note here, we've got a Mary Elizabeth and Thomas Howell. And I know J.E.J. Howell had 6 siblings from the pension, but he was the only one named. So these could be siblings. And I would recommend if you see, and you see that we have an E.J. Howell, then we have J.E.J. I would recommend if you see anybody kind of close to each other on the page, and you're looking at probates, to pull them all, because they're probably related. And probate, like a probate, to probate an estate didn't necessarily happen within the year. It could take decades to probate, and that would also just depend on when the family chose to probate the estate. It could be costly. And I know for a fact from the pension that this family wasn't well off. And so it could be decades after Nancy's death or J.E.J. Howell's death that we even see a probate record, if we see one. But for our purposes today, we're just going to pull one record to show you what it looks like. And I'm going to pull this E.J. Howell just to demonstrate that sometimes you'll look in an index and you won't have the exact spelling that you're expecting to see. But if it's close, check it out. And as you see when we go into the record says J.E.J. Howell. And so imagine yourself as the county clerk or the court clerk who's just creating this index, looking at records. I am sure I would make mistakes because we're human. And so don't get set on one way of spelling a name. This is actually something that I do for my own research. If I'm having a hard time finding a family, I'll go to my 7-year-old and I say, okay, I'm going to say this name to you, spell it. Or I'll do it to my 5-year-old or someone and I'll see what they're thinking of and phonetically how they're coming up with names, because sometimes it's hard for me to think, how might somebody who's doing just spelling phonetically spell this? And so this is close enough for me, and we're going to take a look at it. So E.J. Howell, this is an estate record. It's in volume 4. And it looks like he's got different areas of this volume where he's mentioned. And we're going to look at page 289 to 290. So we're going to come back out here, and we're just going to see if Family Search has book 4 digitized. I've had it happen to me where I'm looking in the index, I'm getting excited, I found the family, but Family Search only has indexed to volume 2 and I need volume 7. I mean, I said index, I meant digitized to volume 2 and I needed volume 7. And so in that scenario, then I'm calling the author of these records or the county clerk's office or the county courthouse, whoever houses the records. I'm giving them a call to see how I can access them. For this case, looks like Family Search does have volume 4, gives us a date range of 1920 to 1925. So we're probably looking not at Nancy Howell's death, but around J.E.J. Howell's death, which occurred around 1920. We're also looking at item 2. And let's go ahead, and as we keep those things in mind, we'll go into the records. Okay, so here we've got item 1. We're going to come up here and make it small again, looking for item 1. I'm looking for item 2. I apologize. And we're just going to make sure we've got volume 4 here. We do. And look at how cool this is. This is what you can expect to see when you go into a county clerk's office or the archives for a county. It's really, really a neat experience. And I would recommend, if you're into old books or historical documents, take a look, make a visit, plan a trip, because it's worth it. It is really fun. So I'm going to zoom back out just to demonstrate something. And again, when you come in here, you're going to get your bearings and you're going to try to recognize patterns. This will help you navigate this much more quickly. If you'll note, these pages are blank. There's some columns of writing all the way through here until here, and then it's just page by page is full of writing. This type of setup indicates an index. So the volume 4 has an index at the beginning. So I don't need to go page by page there. I know the records start here. Now I'm looking for 289. I guess you could scroll down and just randomly start clicking. I would recommend you double check this is page 1. You see that there are 2 pages per image. So we need 289. So I'm going to split that in half because there are 2 pages per image. Gets us at about 145. I'm going to add 145 to 360, which puts us at about 505. All right, so there we are. We're at 289. And again, get your bearings. Understand, try to at least for a second, to see how the county had these records organized. You'll note just some patterns. You see the state of Alabama, Covington County Probate Court, and you'll see that a few times, which could indicate that we're looking at different cases, maybe at different items of a case. Looks like this is for the same person, Samantha A. Hicks, Samantha A. Hicks, Samantha A. Hicks. But then you have this right here, I imagine indicating a page break. And then we have J.E.J. Howe. And remember, it was E.J. Howe in the index, but it's close enough that it was worth looking at. We've got Mrs. Elizabeth A. Howe, represents J.E.J. Howe. And now this is where we get the good stuff, right? We're in these records. We just took all that time to find them, although it honestly wasn't that long, even though we were going slower. 15 minutes to find this. Now, if you didn't have a death certificate, which commonly in the South, you're not going to see death certificates regularly put into the county before this time period, 1930, 1940s for some states. And so if you're looking for a death certificate and you can't find it, or they weren't created at that time, or people still didn't comply with the law to register those deaths, you can come to the probate records and you might find his actual or her actual death date. So it says, he departed this life at Red Level, Alabama on or about the 16th day of April, 1922, leaving no last will or testament. Okay, so this is not a will. These are just estate records, administration records. And then it goes on to give you a little bit more information. So he was seized and possessed of real and personal estate. He had worth about $6,000. These little details, they might seem unimportant, but let's say that there were 3 J.E.J. Howells or something like John Howell in the county about the same age according to census records. If you were trying to differentiate between them and everything else was kind of similar, but you knew that your person was the poor person and another John Howell was a little bit more wealthy according to census records, and let's say this said $30,000 for his estate, you would say, this is probably not my guy. So those little details can help you get clues as to whether or not this is for your ancestor. Now here's my favorite part of this record, and this was a really special find. I'd seen this family in census records before his death in 1920, and I knew they had a daughter named Mary. What I didn't know, and what you'll see here, is Mary Elizabeth Howell, adopted daughter of said decedent, a minor of 14 years. I had no idea she was adopted, and I probably never would have unless I'd looked at this record. Now, will this record pull for me in Family Search just on your general record search? No, not yet, because it's not indexed. So these are the things that you're going to want. This is why I recommend you just go to the catalog and look at the county. Look at the record groups that have birth, marriages, deaths, probate, whatever it is you are wanting to find, and see if they have unindexed records that you can search through. Because you'll find gems. I almost always find something for an ancestor when I do this type of search in the catalog. So it's just really rewarding. And that's why I'm excited to be here with you to just share with you how to do it. And hopefully it will open up more records for you. and more information and stories and details for your ancestors. So again, we're going to come up here, looking at our next example in Scott County, Illinois. I'm going to come to the catalog, put in Scott. Again, you've got your notes up here. It was created from Morgan County in 1839. We're looking in about 1891 for William E. McEvers. We're looking for a marriage. We got that date based off of information in the census. And we know that his wife's name is Maggie, but we don't know her last name. So because it's 1891 that we're looking, we're not really interested in this right now for the purposes of finding our marriage record, but it's good to know. And remember, you won't see a marriage record group. It will be under vital records. Now, Scott County has a few more, you could say books, if we're going with that metaphor still, that discuss marriages. And I'd like to give you a tip. If you can, when you look at author, look for authors that say the county. The county is the author. Because those will be the actual records held at the county. They'll typically be your original records. That will give you a lot more context than, let's say, this is an author and this is a person who would have gone and abstracted these records for you. And they'll be under just marriage license records. If I had to choose, and I had the original records available, I would choose this first because I can get more from the context of the record itself. So we're going to go there. That I should have slowed down, but this is the same thing that you would have seen on that page. I'm clicking on marriage licenses 1867 to 1927. And that fits my time range. I'm looking for 1891. Now I've chosen Scott County. When I first started digging into this county and researching an individual, these were not indexed. And so I think it's just important, though, that you see how it looks when they are indexed, places you can search if they're indexed. But also, this county is particularly difficult to navigate. And so I wanted to show it to you because you're going to run across other counties like this that are not indexed. And I want you to be able to feel confident in your abilities to take these steps and navigate them, whether they're indexed or not. So the first thing you're going to do is look up here, look at the notes. So it's telling you there's a misfiled roll, a roll of misfiled marriage licenses that are in chronological order. It is about as large as the alphabetical rolls. So you've got a bunch of alphabetical rolls, then you have misfiled rolls that are not in alphabetical order but chronological order. So that's important to know. So if you're coming down here, don't start looking for alphabetized by surname. You're going to look chronologically. And I would come here if you're not finding your ancestor up here. So the last name is McEvers, and you're going to come here, and the first thing you're going to do is say, now how is this organized? You look at the notes and you'll say, are these volume numbers or what's happening? You'll look and note this is a name. So Ernest James Street, so it's by surname O to the surname Street. We want McEvers, so we're going to go to K through N, 1867 to 1914. Always double check the date range. Make sure it still covers your 1891 or whatever date you're looking for. You'll note there's no item number, so we're going to start at the very beginning. You'll click on the camera icon. And now that you're here, get your bearings again. If you get nothing else from this presentation, first step is to get your bearings and understand what you're looking at, because you come in here and you're looking not at books but at loose papers, loose marriage licenses. So we now are a little bit more familiar with the beginning images for a microfilm that indicate that you're starting a microfilm. Well, what on here can tell you how to navigate or indicate the organization a little bit of this microfilm? Now you know that it's organized by surname, but there are a lot of surnames between K and N. So how can we find the ends quickly? You look here, this is a folder, and it has K on it. So that means that we can go and try to find the M folder. And that will help us to navigate a little bit more quickly. So we could stay here at the 10 pages across, but as you probably have guessed, I'm going to make it smaller. And I'm looking for a clean blank page among these. And you'll see there's some similar, so we're going to have to pay close attention for a completely blank page with a letter at the top. I'm going to look here, make sure we didn't skip L. Okay, that is L. Come back out and we're looking for M. I believe this is M. It is. So now we are looking for McEvers, which will probably be towards the beginning, but you do not want to go into these assuming they're still in surname order. It might, now that you're in the folder, go chronologically. And the notes would probably tell you that, but just for practice, we're going to just double check. So you've got Geo or George McAllister, married about 1882. Well, married in 1882. This is for him again. Here we've got James McAssey, 1890. Oh, one too far. Okay, then you've got McBride, 1879. So these are still in alphabetical order. They haven't switched to chronological. And we're looking for McEvers. Now, just a tip, if you're looking at mix, there's going to probably be a lot of them. So I'm just going to scroll out, and I want to get a sense for how quickly we're moving through the McBride, the Mick surnames, as I like to call them. Okay, well, McEvers here. So we went down a few rows. So it's not moving too quickly. But this is Byron McEvers. So I'm going to stick here, go over a few pages, and see if I can get closer. Okay, I've got a Thomas. Great. We're getting really close to William. Willis. Okay, well, William should be before that. But just to be sure, we'll go to the next person. Well, that's James McGinnis. So at this point in research, would you stop looking? What should you do? Now I'll give you some background again. From census records, the family lived in Scott County consistently. Doesn't appear that they moved. Land records don't indicate any movement. I'd imagine that they married in Scott County about 1891. You can see that there are records from that time period. So where could they be? I mean, maybe they married in another county, right? That's possible. Did anybody get their bearings when we zoomed out? Did anybody see the organization of these records that might clue us into why I'm not finding William? There's Thomas, Willis. So when you get your bearings, make sure that you can see the whole image, because these are tricky. Typically, you'll see this rotated and you'll have a page here for a person and a page here for a person. But because I guess Scott County wanted to be different, and the way that they were microfilmed on top of each other. So these are actually for different people. Let's zoom out a little bit. So we've got Maggie or Margie. She goes by Maggie typically. William E. McEvers, and we've got her last name, Loving. Now, if you have an ancestor, Scott County in 1891 in Illinois, you are blessed if they married around this time, because you typically don't see this much information on marriage licenses until later in the 1900s. in 1891. That's incredible. And very lucky to get all of this information. You've got where Maggie was born, specifically where she was born, her parents' names, William's parents' names, their ages, where he was born. You'll see he's 34, she's 16. So you can probably be fairly confident that this is her maiden name and not another married name because of her age. You can come over here and it will tell you, who married them, and that's something to look for, especially if it tells you if it was like a minister of the gospel of the Methodist Church or another church, because that can indicate where you might look for church records. Now, something to note with marriages, just as a general research tip, there are a lot of different records created at a marriage event. You'll have the license application, you'll have the marriage license itself, you might have a separate certificate. And if there are minors getting married, you will have some sort of authorization from their legal guardian saying, or parents, saying, I give permission for him or her to marry. Now, whether or not the county still has those on file, that depends on the county. But Scott County does. And they are actually located, and I'll show you after I show you this record where you can find them in the catalog. But they're not in that marriage licenses one that we clicked on. They're in a different area. So I'll show you that. But I just want to just give you an idea about what you might find. Oh, I actually got the wrong thing up. So I'll just find it really quickly for you. Actually, this will be good. So I can show you how you can find these and where they might be at. So they will still be under the Vital Records record group. But you note here, this was Scott County as the author of marriage licenses. This is Scott County, the author of just general vital records. And that means within these books, you'll have birth, marriages, and deaths. And you'll see an index to marriages, Book A. Note how it spans. Book A spans microfilm, which is also why this is a complicated county to search through, because of the breaks in the microfilm across books. So I'm just going to click here. Normally you'd go in the index, but I'm familiar with where it is, and for the sake of time, I just want you to see the types of records. So we're going to go to the index. Here's how you would do it. And we'll type in 1891, 1891. Okay, I'm going to come here to this image. So this is the image that you would find if you went through the catalog the traditional way. And these records are very, very cool because you're seeing the actual, not in our ancestors that we're looking at right now, but in some of the other ones, you'll get the actual writing signatures of family. Look how neat that is. It just adds just a little bit of that extra touch when you're writing the story of your ancestor's life. It's very, very neat to have something like this. And I've seen some that are very detailed. Like, this is my beloved only daughter. I love her so much. He goes on and on about how much he loves her and about how this man better take care of her and he's trusting her. And then in the end, she does give his permission. And so you can get some real gems if you're lucky enough to find these, and if the county does still have them, which Scott County does. Now, what makes this even more important for your research is you'll note this is on the license, you didn't get the mother's name, just her last name was Loving. This gives you her first name is Alice, and now she doesn't have the last name Loving, it's Orris, which indicates she married. And if you didn't know that, then trying to track her down to the time when she might have passed away would be very difficult, because you wouldn't know to look for an Alice Orris. You might be looking for an Alice Loving. And then you get some more information that Margie or Maggie Loving, she's a minor, she's 15 years old. that she has no father living or legal guardian. So that gives you some information. She's 15. This is her mother, not some other aunt or other relative. And her father died within the last 15, 16 years. And then you just get a little bit more information, and she gives her consent. This is probably, looks like this was copied, or maybe the county clerk himself wrote this out and then she signed it, told him what to write. But this is great. And finding these original records is what digging into the catalog is all about, because now we've got a lot of different leads, other places to look, a range for when her father might have passed away, and her mother's new married name. Okay, so let's move on to our last example, which is for Ann Parsons, who died about 1886 in Jackson County, Michigan. She was born in England. And I'm going to take you through the regular search function on Family Search, the one that most of you are familiar with, have used before, because I want to emphasize that even if you're pulling records that way, index records, you're still going to want to know how to navigate the catalog in the way that we've just gone over. So let's go to the regular search function. And we are typing in Ann Parsons. She was born in England, and she died in Jackson. And you can put county in this section. 1886. It looks like Ann Parsons, born in England, died 1886, Jackson, Michigan. That looks right. We've got a good index here. It gives us a lot of information. And at this point, you might say, well, that's good. That's great. There's no image. You don't see the images typically here. But I want you to take a second and read the blue box if you see this. This record came from this set of images. You will need to look through several images to find this record. Now, why is it important? Because there's going to be context in these original records that you're not going to get from an index. Additionally, this image, because I'm familiar with them, will show you the cause of death as well, which you won't get from the index. And I rushed that. Before you just jump in, something you should know is there's a section called document information. If you come here, you look at the reference ID. This is volume B, page 5. And now we're experts, right? We know how to navigate to different books and different sections. We're looking for book B. Now we don't have a specific section number of the microfilm. This is going to take us directly to the first page, first image, you can see up here, of the microfilm. So to get our bearings, let's click on this first book. You can see it's a book spine, and figure out what book we're at. Okay, that's book A, record of deaths. This looks about the right timeline. So we're in the right spot. We need to find book B. So go ahead and minimize. Looking for just it's going to look similar. And when it pops back up, a black image, you see a spine of a book. That's what you're looking for. Okay, well, this looks like some indication of maybe a new microfilm, but I don't see a book spine, and it actually says continued. So you're still looking at book A right here. Okay, that says the end of that. We're starting a new one. Let's make sure this is book B. Record of deaths, 1886 and 1901, book B. And I actually didn't need to zoom out because, remember, it's page 5. So we could just, it's close enough, you can just click some pages over until you get to page 5. And luckily, Ann Parsons is at the beginning. We have the same information we got in the index, except here, cause of death was consumption. So it's just those little details that can make the story of your ancestor more special, more meaningful to people that read it if you were to write it up. Fortunately, her parents are not given here, but we know that they were from England as well. So that's great. We've got a little bit of more detail here. But now there's something particularly important to Ann Parsons' family that's also on this page. Can anybody spot the additional detail that can open up new information about the family that is on this record that we did not just look at? If you look here, you have got a ditto mark under Ann Parsons. So that's another person named Ann Parsons right under our ancestor. Just right there, my research alarm bells are going off. I'm like, ding, 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 that's something I should look at, right? Well, let's look and see when they died. Okay, they died 3 days before Ann Parsons. Okay, interesting. She's only 2. Ann Parsons is 34. Same name. I have a feeling you guys are already kind of going along the same line of thinking that I am. She died of brain fever, born in Michigan, and then her mother was Ann Parsons. Father, George Parsons. And I know from census records that Ann was married to George. What does this tell you? Now this tells you that Ann Parsons likely had a daughter named Ann Parsons. This is likely her daughter. Very, very likely. You might want to see if you can verify that with other records, but that could be difficult. And this is what makes this line and information very special. You'll note this Ann Parsons was only 2 years old in 1886. So she was born about 1884. Well, the censuses go from 1880. There's one in 1890 that was destroyed. So the next census isn't until 1900. So she's born in between census records. And you might have discovered that she existed. Maybe you looked at cemetery records, or there was another family, like maybe a family Bible, some other record that indicated that she existed. But if you didn't have those, this record might be the only place that you know that would tell you that Ann Parsons had a daughter named Ann Parsons. So you've just added a child and given a name to this child who might have gone unnoticed for indefinitely until somebody looked and understood the context clues of the original image. So that's why I recommend, if you're looking at an index through your general search and it gives you the option to browse images, find that image if you can, because you never know what the context clues can tell you about your family member. And that's it for our examples. And let's do just a brief run through of just 10 steps for the successful hunt in the catalog. So first, identify jurisdiction or the place where your ancestor lived. Second, determine what record group will tell you the information you need. Do you want death information? Are you looking at probate records or vital records? Then you're going to type the place of interest into the catalog search function. You'll look at available record groups and identify the ones that you're interested in, such as probate, vital record. And then you'll get your bearings. You're going to understand the lay of the land, right? How are these records available? In what format are they available? Are they online, microfilm, index? Are they a book? And then pay attention to the film number. Is there an item number listed or not? What do the notes tell us? Just basically get your bearings. Understand what's happening. And you'll click on the camera icon. You'll jump into microfilm land, and you'll get, again, your bearings. How is this organized? Are there folders? Is it by book? Does it list section number? And then you'll find your record, and excuse me, sorry about that, and then you'll download the record. Now, typically, records have indexes online on Family Search, but sometimes there's no index. But if there's no index, you can, I don't want to give a percentage, but often they're organized in some consumable way, whether that's alphabetically, by surname, by given name, by date. And so if you know the person's name, full name, if you know about when they lived in that area, then you can typically find these records and search them successfully. Although without an index, it might take you a little bit longer. Keep doing that. So the last thing that you want to do is if it's a particularly difficult group of images, no clear organization, you can't find an index, go ahead and give the author that you saw in the catalog for that record group, give them a call. And just do a quick Google search for Scott County, Illinois probate court. And then give them a call and see what they have, see if they have an index. I'll give you an example. I actually went to this county. It's a nearby county to me out here in New Jersey. And I was looking at old court records, the quarter session records, and the index for this particular book wasn't online. And so I went over to the county and I spoke to a person. Now, this county has two rooms. They have an archive room and then they have a more modern records room. And I spoke to just the general person at the desk and they're like, well, because I tried to find the index on my own. They let me go in and I was looking and I couldn't find it. And the actual book didn't have an index in the front. And she said, well, if it's not there, I don't know if we have it. So you can go and check the more modern record room and talk to the archivist. So I did, and she said, oh, well, the reason you didn't find it in the archive room is it's in the modern records room, where we keep a large general index of all court records, not just quarter session. And so then I was able to navigate these records fairly quickly. And I probably could have just called and asked to speak to, and I recommend this, speak to the archivist or the county clerk, because they'll have a better knowledge of the records than maybe the receptionist might for the office. But the point of the story is, if it's particularly difficult, don't pull your hair out trying to figure out how these are organized. Give the county or whatever entity is housing the records a call, because they have people that work in them every day and could help navigate them for you. Does anybody have any questions? Any feedback? If you do have feedback, I'd love to hear what you thought. Ideas for future presentations, things that I can improve on. And go ahead and just shoot me an email here. I'd love to hear from you. And that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me talk about the Family Search Catalog. Bryant, do we have any questions?